Welcome. Quorum periodically sponsors market spotlight events such as these in conjunction with the World Financial Symposiums to a forum on timely topics in the software and technology industry. The WS is an international organization dedicated to educating technology leaders. Quorum, as many of you know, is the leading global mid-market M&A firm focused on software and technology. We have a diverse and distinguished panel of industry experts in the geospatial space, as well as insights from Quorum's research department. This will last about 30 to 35 minutes and will be followed by a Q&A session. And I would encourage you, our attendees, to submit questions to our panelists during the session so we can address those at the end. I'm Ward Carter, Chairman of the Quorum Group, speaking from our headquarters near Seattle, Washington. Here's the agenda. After some opening comments, we'll have an update from Quorum Research on relevant deals and valuation trends, followed by guest panelists who will be introduced later. So, let's get started. Repeating our title, Where is Everywhere? We've all come to recognize that most everything has a geo component. This technique now touches most sectors in the software space, as the wave of technology adoption accelerates, while levels of consolidation via M&A are impacting most market sectors. Very fast-paced industry, so let's context how far we have come and how quickly things change. We've used technologies, fairly named as geospatial and GIS and location-based services and others, as they have matured with time. Yet we've moved as the utility of our mobile devices have expanded with location services. But we know that all location data originates from a mobile device. Rather, massive amounts of location data reside in internet databases whose potential can be further unlocked in the mashup of location-related data and applications and graphic visualization tools that unlock our ability to see relationships that exist in that data, enhancing understanding and further decision-making capabilities. Has enjoyed success in this with recent M&A examples, including Quorum clients, Ship Minex in industry, which we sold to Gemcom, an asset tracking solution which we sold to Hitachi, and Survey, with advanced surveying and mapping solutions in the construction and forensics space, which we sold to Leica Geosystems, part of Lexicon Group. We've had an upsurge in related new client engagements, including Quorum clients that are getting location-based data, which is a lead in mapping tools, one fleet tracking, and an innovator in satellite geospatial systems. We remain on prospects for a successful M&A market for geospatial going forward. So, what's coming our way? We'll see for impact of GPS built in as more and more devices become GPS capable. And enhanced mobile positioning technologies greatly expand the range of potential applications, as outside the range of GPS satellites and on GPS with other technologies that extend location awareness. New advertising models made possible with refined location data. Advertising based not just on where you are, but where you've been, where you haven't been, and maybe where are you going. And location awareness becomes even more multidimensional, with floors and internal building locations, not just grounded positions, and passes through time, just where you are now. Devices are pushing back data, big data, geospatial data, including related maps, imagery, derived data, public crowdsourced data, tag data, metadata, and other, creating other opportunities for new applications to interpret, manage, and monetize the flow of data. And applications we have not even thought of yet, as the really compelling applications may be those of machine-to-machine communications, as the Internet of Things finds itself and becomes location-aware at levels we can hardly imagine. But such vision, as we are seeing a surge of deals in the M&A space, as forewarned in our April webinar, and now it is happening as our research will support. So is location just part of the mix, or is it a new platform? Where are opportunities and drivers in geo as applications move beyond traditional mapping and navigation apps? And are there any dark clouds on the horizon? What are acts of the on the media and advertising industry, and how this is relevant to corporate decision makers. All this and more as we hear from our panelists. I'd like now to an update from Elon Gasper, Quorum's Vice President and Director of Research, to give us some perspective on recent deal activity in the geospace. Elon?
Thanks, Ward. Let's set the stage with a look at the public markets, which have continued to rise this year, barely pausing for breath as the three major indices we track continue to show fine gains, while large corporations bank record stock piles of cash, which in their turn power waves of consolidation during this banner year for M&A. Looking back a couple of years, as we did in April, the geospatial field has been an influencer of M&A, with companies like Sweden's Hexagon and France's Dassault emerging from all over the world to stake claims to the new tech turf that it's creating. More recently, we've seen an even broader mix of players as the impact of this new core of technological change fans out further afield into the many areas that Ward mentioned. These overlap with the 6 major markets that Quorum tracks, but two in particular stood out to us in the last few months, the Berlin horizontal applications market. So we'll take a look at those in particular and how they've been influenced by geospatial data and technology. First, a word on one tie-up not yet consummated, the ongoing mating dance between GeoEye and Digital Globe. These two companies provide most of the satellite imagery for the consumer applications. They're the most visible way geolocation has improved our everyday lives. A few months ago, it looked as if GeoEye was going to be on top of the tying, but roles reversed last month. Anyway, we expect this to be a long engagement with the final ceremony delayed until the spring, but isn't that traditional anyway? Meanwhile, the rest of the world is turning fast, so I thought we'd just look at the top 10 location-related deals from the last 80 days around the world, the last 80 days through last week. Besides some specialties our panelists will be covering, like location-based marketing, buyers are ranging here from some of the usual suspects Ward mentioned to some real surprises. And we're seeing sellers from many countries and several segments, including imaging, planning, looking down, GIS, which are concentrated in the horizontal and vertical markets. Let's start with vertical, though, and orient ourselves then, return to its individual transactions that made our top 10. We've seen vertical market software companies' valuations bobbing along around 2 times sales recently. Higher numbers are possible for filling a critical strategic niche when a wave peaks. And a wave is clearly on the move through the vertical market companies in the geolocation space, particularly in fleet management. Ward mentioned some of the companies Quorum has sold in this space. These are among the most mature geolocation applications, so that's no surprise. And verticals tend to accrete additional features like a pearl, but the seed for each has been training and applying geodata. The biggest of these was Verizon's takeover of Hughes Telematics for over $600 million. Hughes' broad line of geodata applications and related technology will expand Verizon's auto and fleet telematics, and it's a healthy multiple for Hughes owners, trimmed up to its reputation as a serial acquirer by snagging 2 geo companies, including Canada's GeoTrack, which makes GPS-based fleet tracking and navigation systems for oil and gas companies. Logis grew its location-based SaaS portfolio by reaching into the SMB market, where they came up with Maryland's NavTrack GPS fleet management outfit. Finally, Harman Audio Products Company, entered the market to buy India's Interchain, a maker of GPS-based fleet tracking and handheld nav systems. That is an example of finding a buyer in an adjacent market through a Google search. Now, back in the horizontal market, valuations there have remained generally higher, but less dependably so as disruption continues. But if you're one of the disruptors, life can be good. The clarion call of social media, though sounding a bit flat for the big consumer companies like Facebook lately, still gets the buyers dancing when it harmonizes with other popular notes like geolocation, mobile, cloud. And Trimble sounded a chord with its other catch, Spime, whose US India team integrated its MapMan location-based cloud services platform with social solutions for mobile devices. And some would say that billion-dollar industry behemoth, Esri, won't hear only one tune. If so, last month helped assure that stay the case as it assimilated one of the pioneering social mapping and geodatabase upstarts, GeoIQ, formerly known as Fortis One, who have passionately applied themselves and about $11 million in VC funding to their ambitious vision of GeoCommons. One of those VCs in GeoIQ was InQtel, the venture funding arm of the CIA. The same day that Esri bought GeoIQ, the spooks also transitioned their investment in Geospatial, a big geospatial extractor and integrator, as it became part of Terraco, yet another InQtel portfolio company. Ward, there's more that I could tell you, but then I'd have to find someone else to moderate our panel.
Okay. Thanks, John. Very interesting activity, and I think it really does support the fact that, this is a sector that is consolidating. Now I'm really pleased to move forward to talk to our industry panelists. We've got a group together today, and I'd like to start off with David Sonnen, who is here with us local and live in our offices. And David has been involved in the geospatial marketplace for a number of years and been IDC Senior Consultant for Spatial Information Management since 1991. And amazing. I didn't know we had geospatial applications back in 1991. So, David, turn the floor over to you.
Well, thanks, Ward. It's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to this audience. What I'd like to do for you over the next few minutes is to look at why we think location or where is everywhere, whether it's either a statement or a question. I'd also like to just briefly describe what location-specific data analysis is, then to look at why this is driving, why location-specific is starting to drive an awful lot of interest in a lot of sectors. And we'll close with a few observations about what's next. It's been very doggedly predicting this third platform, what we're calling the third platform, basically the consolidation of a lot of different technologies, cloud computing, mobile bandwidth, social networking, in-stream analytics. Things are not really viable or supporting a big transformation on their own. But when you put all of this stuff together, you start looking at the consolidation of all these elements. It moves us from the last generation, which is really network computing, or first generation mainframes, to this new third platform, which is enabling an awful lot of innovation, a cheaper, faster way to deal with new applications that's changing a lot of things. The interesting part of this is, of course, location is an organizing element for everything. But now the digital world has caught up. Location is just part of the mix from our viewpoint. It's useful, it's accessible, it's really, really cheap. If you look at what it took to determine the price or a location, even 2 years ago, it was pretty pricey. Now, a cell phone transaction is inherently location specific. It's free. Now, move on to what are we talking about? Location-specific data. Basically, it's physical things or made constructs like boundaries, which really aren't physical. It's location of things and their movements, and that's important because now we can track movements. Ways to specify location. One is to name it. Los Angeles, Denver, Bothell, Alabama, places that occupy some point on the Earth or some region on the Earth, but they also have a physical location. Named geospatial data is interesting because it's familiar, it's easy for us to deal with. Our nation systems handle it well, and sometimes we even enrich it with things like coordinates to say this is exactly where it is. The spatial sides, points, lines, polygons, and also the tracks, the process of something through time. described in coordinates rather than just named. It's easier to visualize, it's easier to work into software, it's all handily digital. Now, if we move on, how do you deal with this, and why would you deal with that? We start to look at the biggest fact. Everything's pretty much got to be somewhere. So information is just part of the necessary information we've got to have for a complete picture. And that can be wildly varied, whether it's fleet management or where you are on the freeway or what your customers are doing. Those are just necessary. The element in location is that we can start looking at location patterns and predict what's next. In a lot of situations like emergency services or location in chains, and that's a little bit late. You really do need to be predicting what's next. In optional analytics, whether it's in agriculture or risk mitigation, look gives you a clearer picture of what's going on and what's about to happen. So now, because location-specific information is so inexpensive and so easily available, look at the location of individual events. There's one company out there right now, Solus Systems, that has a router that can handle location-specific coordinates at about 10 million a second and publish and subscribe those across the internet. It is absolutely amazing. And that leads us to things like augmented reality. A fire truck pulls up to the scene, the driver gets out, takes a picture of the building, goes to work. In a matter of seconds becomes the floor plans, the connections to the hydrants, all the electrical power. Everything is right there, augmenting the situational awareness for that particular driver. So all these are pretty amazing. They're really interesting. So what's next? Well, I look funny in turban, but I'm going to take a crack at fortune telling here. One is we know that location in infrastructure is going to be a fact. All major databases, all major business intelligence applications, most of the infrastructure now can handle location-specific information as a first-class citizen. Just about at the point where it's really fairly easy to handle large stores and large flows of information, specific information. And that's going to be important. There are going to be many applications. I started into this business years ago, back when Moby Dick was a minnow. Location companies were pretty easy. We're all just a family. We had these little small, cozy conferences. Now we're tracking at IDC about 750, 800 new entrepreneurial companies. There's a froth of new companies. Applications, new ideas, huge innovation. That's sorted out, and I think to the advantage of Quorum is they're going to put all of that together. What we're going to see is these applications will continue to multiply. It's really easy to do vertical and horizontal apps. We're going to see consumer companies like Google, Microsoft move into this space in a really big way. The change, though, I think, is that customers, the users, are going to demand exactly what they need. They're not going to be buying big packages. They're not going to be buying a lot of stuff. They're going to be prescribing exactly what they want and what they need. The user then will become the designer, at least a designer of their systems, a provider of data, a provider of applications. That generates pull demand, which is a very different model than the current technology push-out model that is so familiar and comfortable for us.
Very interesting, David. Now, that certainly sounds like when the users become the code designers, that sounds like it's pretty disruptive.
Yes. It's going to be really interesting.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks. Again, for those that would like to pose a question to our panelists, please submit those in the session, and we'll try to get to those at the end. I'd like to turn the floor over to John Nauer, who is the president and CEO of Riza Labs out of the Pittsburgh area. He's been a social entrepreneur for the past 20 years and has had great success in this space. Josh? He's on mute.
Yep. Thanks very much, and glad to be here with everybody today. I'm going to start by looking at how we got to the current state of location technologies and talk a bit about what I think are the key trends to watch, specifically as it relates to media and advertising markets, which is the area that we operate in. So for the last 40 years or so, location on the application side of things meant GIS mapping. It stands for Geographic Information Systems, and has been a pursuit for really only highly trained experts. The ability to create content, analysis, models, et cetera, has been very expensive, and since the 1980s has been predominantly controlled by one company, Esri. It's really enjoyed high market penetration to experts with applications related to city planning, engineering, defense, government intelligence, et cetera. But the end product is almost always a map with different colored dots or shapes that represent some aspect of data. And if you're not a geo geek and don't like the color of the shape or want to ask a slightly different question, you have to go back to the GIS certified professional who made that map for you in the first place and wait for a while for the results. The point is that people who need to use the data to make better decisions or influence others have not been able to access and use these tools directly. So GIS application community has been very feature-driven, adding menus and new options and new algorithms and all the rest, but has largely failed in making tools that are more accessible to decision makers, specifically in the marketing and advertising industries, and obviously in others too. These users don't need they need a bloated Swiss Army knife of features. They just need precision tools that flexibly help them get the answers they need to take some sort of action. So many at this point in my talk asked questions about, well, what about Google and what about cell phones and all the rest? So, platforms like Google or phones or GPS nav systems have definitely broken through, and location-based services, those are the beachheads to the general public. For the most part, though, they're really just used for routing and rather simple navigation purposes. For example, it's easy to find a pizza shop near you, but it's still way too hard to find the best pizza shop near you that your friends think have the best crust and have warm slices ready to go right now. These are types of real-world questions users want to be able to ask of this data, and right now it's really hard to do that. Abstract the structure of the question, the pizza question that I just asked, out for more general purposes across other domains, and you'll realize that many of the most advanced geo or general data systems that we have, getting widespread use, are still quite shallow at best. Companies like mine are focusing on building web-based tools that empower non-data geeks to be able to get direct answers to very specific questions, may or may not relate to location. Because the user doesn't care whether it's a location or not related question, they just want an answer. So helping our customers answer questions like, where should I be advertising to reach more people who are like my best customers? Which of my customers are more likely to make a luxury car purchase in the next 60 days? With cast and television advertising still comprising nearly 70% of all ads purchased here, the answer to these questions cannot just be in the context of online ad purchases. One of the tools that Risa has built in this space allows these types of queries to be made by ad sales teams and the answers presented to potential ad buyers. Our user interfaces are designed to hide the complexity of these queries and only sometimes result in a map visualization being created. This easy-to-parse data-driven sales process has led to an increase in the trust built between a salesperson and the ad buyer, which results in a faster close rate and an increase in revenue for our customers. In this space, we're starting to see some very interesting trends emerge in analyzing customer behavior, geographic proximity, and media consumption to help advertisers better target their ads and messaging, as well as to help networks understand how different content is faring across different audiences. Truly, this marketing data customer marketing data specifically, has been delivered at the or if you're lucky, zip code level. The geos that are being analyzed now are sometimes at the sub-house level, able to differentiate the TV you watch in your bedroom versus the computer downstairs. Because of privacy concerns, right now this data is almost always aggregated back up to larger geographies or customer clusters. But precision of the data is so much higher now because we're all starting to get out of the old style thinking of large-scale geographies as effective clustering mechanisms. The given are just, in one case, are specific, to the market area of marketing and advertising. But I think they are indicative of the types of disruption that are happening in the space. I think the companies that are going to succeed going forward are the ones that are going to be finding new ways to make data usable and relevant, tied to specific ROI that can be well understood by end customers.
Excellent. Thanks, Josh. Very insightful. I think we can see why you're on the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is coming from the Toronto area, Alan Pym, who is the COO of APOS Systems. APOS is really on the forefront of providing location intelligence solutions in the SE and the business objects SAP market. Alan, great to have you with us.
Great, thank you, Ward. And the storyline of our organization and our involvement with geospatial is really fitting very well with the kinds of topics that we've been dealing with in the progression of geospatial as a whole. Organization, our heritage is in bringing enhancement solutions to the SAP Business Objects, Business Intelligence solution, and a range of solutions around administration and management and monitoring of that business objects platform. But we launched into the geospatial market about 7 years ago with our solution, the APOS Location Intelligence solution, and what that is, a bidirectional integration solution between geospatial and business intelligence. And the importance of visualization of the where topic and being able to visualize all kinds of enterprise-wide data in that sort of manner is certainly at the core of what drew us into this market and customer requirements that we were seeing and interaction that we had with the two primary vendors that we work with. And I guess for us, over that 7 years' time, we've seen significant growth in the importance of geospatial, and in particular, really in the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a strong upsurge of that. But for us, again, we come from the business intelligence side of things, but we see that geospatial is very important to business intelligence and has grown very much in that. I think key driver behind our solution and having the visualization aspects of geospatial, but being able to grab enterprise-wide data and to visualize that data, that really is a key element to the solution. And BI, business intelligence, allows that content to be presented in the framework alongside other meaningful content inside of compelling reports and dashboards. And so it's like a very natural fit for these two kinds of content and representations of enterprise data. So the bidirectional aspect of our solution between Esri and SAP Business Objects gives the end user the ability to be working in a map and looking at a geospatial perspective, being able to make feature selections on that content, and then be able to run context-sensitive reports based on that selection. So it gives them the ability to start to look at querying purely from geospatial standpoint, or from the other perspective in bidirectional, where you're starting in a report or a dashboard and having a map or geospatial visualization embedded within that report or dashboard that gives them, the end user, that both types of representations and aids in their decision making that way. So the unified approach really gives both perspectives very well. But accessibility is certainly a key topic that's been mentioned here a couple of times, and that's a big driver behind the solution that we have, and really what the market has been calling for, that we've seen over our time in the market. So that's a quick wrap up on our involvement.
Okay, very good, Alan. Thanks a lot for those comments, and please stay tuned. We'll have some questions for you during the Q&A session, maybe expand on a couple of those points you made. Next, to move over to Rob Gorey. Rob was the founder of AdCentricity and past CEO of AdCentricity, and recently sold that location-based media firm, where he was since 2007. He's now an independent consultant working with startups and retailers. Rob?
Thanks much. Probably a little helpful to add a little background here. I actually grew up in the retail business, so know what is called below the line, what is called the below the line business, which is very significantly different than the advertising business or the above the line business. The location obviously plays a huge part in below the line. Also an ex-coder and developer who ended up going to the dark side in the advertising business. So I've been in online advertising in '95, mobile in 2002, and in location or the where technology business since about 2006. So I think apparently I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment when it comes to a lot of these new mediums, but do absolutely love it. A lot of the knowledge of the ad business and the mobile business from 10 years ago and what is now the location business is definitely coming together for a heck of a lot of interest in both the media advertising and the retail business. So as you mentioned, I was recently CEO of AdCentricity for 5 years. AdCentricity is a location-based media platform was designed to bring scale to all location-based digital mediums. Scale becomes a really big problem as soon as you start getting down into individual mediums or individual digital capabilities at a location. You start to lose control of messaging and targeting capabilities very quickly at scale, which becomes a very big issue or deal when you're dealing in the advertising or communications business. So a lot of these mediums at the moment include things like Wi-Fi and NFC, Bluetooth, mobile, including in-store screens of all kinds, from POS systems to shelf-edge communication systems to you name it. So basically, the platform was designed to pull together any of these digital mediums that could affect a consumer or a shopper at that individual place. So we had a very large AdCentricity has a very large proprietary platform that they collected info about not just the place, as was mentioned before, so what is at the retail store, what are the different mediums, what are the different trends of individual locations, but obviously also consumer behavior and medium interaction inside of those individual locations. And you start to see some phenomenal different activities influences a consumer one time when they come into a store or go to a location is not the same thing that influences them in the future. So you have to be able to have an omni-channel or omnipresent strategy to be able to make sure that you're communicating with them through the platforms that they want to actually communicate with. So AdCentricity's platforms at the time allowed for targeting, media purchasing and workflow, customization of messaging, which is really important when you get into the location business. If not, all of these reams of data coming in, whether it be about an individual consumer or an individual store, you need to be able to do customization of that message down to that store, which you can imagine with 1 million customers a day going through a set of a small retailer's store. That's a heck of a lot of different messages across mediums. So ultimately, we've worked over the past 5 years with Walmart, GM, Bank of America, American Express, and all of these guys have seen some great ROI come off of heavy targeting or heavy use of location data in terms of how they apply some of their messaging and some of their spending patterns, both locally but at scale. So as was mentioned, I'm now enjoying, I think the business of location is just beginning at this particular time, and retailers and sort of newer location companies and retailers are just starting to understand what it means. I think there's a high demand for location, but you have a number of folks in the media business that love the idea, but it creates very small sample sets, which is against the howitzer mentality of the media business. So there's some problems to address in that regard. And then I think there's some retailers and brands are also all about location these days, but there are internal silos and conflicts inside organizations that really are going to need to start to disappear if location data is truly going to be adopted.
Excellent. Thanks. Appreciate those comments, Rob. Fascinating the things that are occurring in this advertising space. Detail. Is Steve Coast on? Steve? We had Steve, who is the is the founder of OpenStreetMap and the chairman and director of the OpenStreetMap Foundation. And he was to join us and we've been in contact during this session, but for some reason we're a technical issue here. If we can chase him down during the Q&A session coming up here, we'll invite him to speak. We'll move on to Q&A. Couple of questions here that came in. David painted a bright picture for the promise of spatial information management technologies. I guess the question is, what's likely to go wrong?
Well, there could be a thing. Ones that the first factor that comes to mind is that location information, particularly or about a person, is extraordinarily sensitive. And you as a company violate that sensitivity. If you somehow violate the cultural norms, which of course are changing all the time, you can be in real trouble. So is a problem with regulation being really vague at this point. That's an issue. There's certainly some technical solutions, but I think we're going to find that privacy and security of location-specific information is a problem for perhaps a while. Second, location data quality, data virtualization present unique and specialized challenges if your data is not good enough. If you think it represents a location more accurately than it does, you have some serious problems. The data architectures and data governance need to be adapted to deal with location data quality and combination or data virtualization of those location-specific elements. Now, the one we talked about briefly earlier is that users want exactly what they want. They want to participate in the design of their systems. They want to select and choose the services and the information analytics that they have available, and that's going to change the market model. It's going to change from push to pull. And that's going to happen, clearly is going to happen over the next 2 or 3 years. And that's going to cause us all to scramble.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Another question. Rob, we know you've been great at targeting new trends, but someone has asked, what are the new dots that we should be connecting to predict the next disruptive impact of location technology on business?
There's a big question. I think that location technology is and will have a bit of a cross-silo effect on organizations. I don't think it necessarily is just tied to the advertising and the marketing side of the business. I think there are portions of it that are tied to things like collaboration. I think speed is an enormous influencer, which leads to satisfaction, and I think facilitation or customer-to-customer driven business is going to all fall out of this. Insights from local data can and will be exposed to guys at the local sales floor. Product development is going to occur with and in conjunction with consumers and marketing almost in real time, if you will. And I think that customers are probably going to support customer service by providing sometimes better and real-time customer support in and around a particular store or in a geography. So, I think the challenge is that, organizations or enterprises, they're built for this. They're not built for this type of cross-functional, synergistic working together. I think the disruptive opportunity inside that and the impact is that location really is going to force them to change because of consumers. And I think it'll be felt first, definitely in the sales and marketing side of things. Second, in the customer service side of the business, and third, in product development. And I think a lot of the successful disruptive companies will be those that are really, really focused on connecting dots between silos, but really heavily focused on margin. So increases in margin, increases in productivity, and then an enormous one, which is going to start to bleed dollars out of the advertising business, is a real heavy focus on the CRM side of things, both the acquisition and retention messaging and relationship between brand and brands, retailers, and customers, which really starts to take out some of the more traditional mediums as those relationships grow.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Rob. Some big opportunities there. Here's a question I think is best going to Alan. Alan, this is kind of regarding the Esri SAP market. And it is, what markets have you seen as being most responsive to geospatial capabilities?
Yeah, so I'd mentioned earlier that we've been involved here for about 7 years in the geospatial side of things, but it's the last 2 or 3 years that we've seen some changes, some additional changes. Right from the beginning, I would say that the markets that have been stressed quite expectedly would be the ones that have been traditional GIS users. So we can think about government and utilities, energy organizations, who really what they've been wanting to do is take the GIS content that they've had and have been using within strategic and get that content exposed out to a broader audience through their business intelligence deployment. So whether it's a government organization who may have one of their branches who's trying to manage their assets, or the effectiveness of their programs, really they've been wanting to utilize both the strength of GIS and the strength of BI to view and visualize those details. But in the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen some non-traditional GIS markets really come forward. So manufacturing, distribution, or insurance would be verticals that come to mind. For example, in insurance, interest in being able to visualize historical or projected impact of weather events, maybe hurricanes, maybe hail, and being able to look at how that will impact factors, exposure factors, helping them with their underwriting or claims management or fraud detection, those kinds of topics. So again, both traditional GIS user organizations, but certainly newer markets are really coming forward in the last few years.
Yeah, it's like there's lots of green fields out there. Okay, thanks, Alan. Here's one I'd like to ask Josh. Josh, the question is, what things you are seeing related to how location-based data is being made more relevant to corporate decision makers? And kind of an add-on to that, are maps really enough?
Well, I'll answer that from the again, the sort of area I come from is on the marketing and communications, advertising side of things. And I think that one very interesting trend, we're starting to see as cable providers and networks on TV, for example, are able to start promoting and targeting their content and the advertising that goes along with it with ever-increasing skill. The question, the traditional advertisers on those areas have been local companies and small companies specifically. So dealers, for example, account for about 40% of all ads purchased on cable networks. And the challenge is, how do you actually take location data related to who their customers are, where they are, and rest, and cater to them in a way that people who are not trained in statistics and are not analysts are able to literally the guy the three dealer network in a local area, how to make it relevant to them. And I think that a lot of work is being done right now that I think is fascinating in terms of how to actually lower the bar for access to this type of information, and that car dealer to get in there, or the ad sales guy who's trying to sell them the ad, to get in and start manipulating some data, not the data, the core data values themselves, of course, but the presentation of it. So the Nielsen data and Scarborough data and Polk data, which is every car registration down to street address in the United States, tied to the dealer that they bought it from, for example, which is an incredibly valuable data set. How to make that come alive for them, and how to make it have meaning. And as more and more of this type of large-scale data becomes available, the challenge and the opportunity really is, how can you make it more relevant to the end users that actually need to make decisions based on it? I'm focusing in advertising advertising, but we've been seeing it in healthcare. We've been seeing it across many different domains, are non-traditional, that really you don't see Esri or any of Esri's partners really working in very, those two are not really being used because they're not considered GIS problems. They're considered marketing problems. And it's interesting, to me, a fascinating field and one that we're enjoying playing in quite a bit.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Yes, absolutely fascinating. This is a space that we're really excited about. As our speakers have demonstrated, there's tremendous opportunities as both traditional and new players seek to geo-enable their application suites. At Quorum, we witnessed the dynamics of a market wave again and again, demonstrating the importance of timing as markets ebb and flow. We really like what we see in this space and believe that strong opportunities exist for buyers to expand their holdings while sellers can leverage the scale and distribution of these active acquirers. We hope you all found this session of interest and will join us for upcoming market spotlights with WFS. I want to extend a special thanks to our panelists who were so generous in offering their time and insights today. And for any questions that we didn't get to, I invite the attendees to send those to us, and we'll redirect those to the panelists as appropriate. And thank you very much for being part of this Spotlight series today.